Dalhousie 100K competition. All applicants must include an 8-minute video explaining how the business model canvas has been used within your startup. What am I doing? I've already read this book. In fact, I've already met Steve Blank.
Anybody read a business plan before? Right. Nowadays, at least where I teach, if you're teaching a business plan, it's in the English department, because it's the best example of creative writing you're going to do. But it has no place at all. None. Should be nowhere near a startup.
So why go through all of this? Well, we're tackling a huge problem. A problem that affects 1 out of 5 people. That's over 100 million people in North America alone. And it's this. So let's imagine for a second we have Jimmy. Now Jimmy has struggled with anxiety and depression for a while now, but it's finally gotten bad enough that he's willing to reach out for help despite the stigma he may face. So Jimmy essentially has 2 options. The first option is for Jimmy to see his doctor. If Jimmy and his doctor decide that Jimmy should try therapy before experimenting with different medications, then his doctor may give him a referral to set up an appointment to see a therapist. Which is awesome because this will be done within the public system and will be free of charge. Now the problem with that is it can take 6 to 18 months, so option 1 is not an option at all. Now, option 2 will most likely be much timelier. Jimmy can elect to seek out a private therapist. But although Jimmy has a great policy, it actually only covers $500. Which happens to be the exact moment that Jimmy realizes that his therapist actually charges $175 a session, which buys him a grand total of 3 sessions. So in other words, option 1 and option 2 are actually not helpful options at all. So, I've identified the problem, but what's the solution? Well, let's get into that. So it all starts by having an online platform. Essentially, we want to be able to give people access to the gold standard approach to helping people with anxiety. It's called Cognitive Behavioral Therapy, or CBT for short. And our solution is going to be affordable, timely, stigma-free, personal, and accessible. Our minimal viable product has been built by my co-founder, a clinical psychology PhD student who's being supervised by the professor at Dalhousie University who teaches CBT to the clinical psych students. But by looking at the academic and clinical research as well as our competition, we have realized that most people need a bit more than a self-help platform. What they need is a platform as well as scheduled time with a coach to help them stay motivated and keep them accountable. And we validated that with our MVP. But I guess I'm getting ahead of myself. You guys want to know how we use the business model canvas to come up with all this. So when it comes to the business model canvas, it all starts with this one fateful conversation. I was telling my friend Sabrina that I needed to write a business plan, but then she told me,
"That's a waste of time, just use the lean canvas."
And that sounded strange to me because it went against everything I learned in my degree in commerce. But I started looking into it a bit, and that's when a friend of mine, Steph McDonald, invited me to an event here. It was for this thing called Collide, and from what I gathered, it was all about learning about how to use the business model canvas. So I decided to myself, I gotta sign up for that. And actually, that's the moment that I decided to officially start working on Tranquility Online. So it wasn't a week or 2 after getting accepted into Collide that I was told about Startup Weekend and that I should attend. And during that weekend, we had a crash course on the business model canvas, and we were able to get out of the classroom and ask people questions, and we also ran a few surveys and got a lot of insights about our potential customers. For example, one thing we did was we ran a survey on Facebook of 100 people, and 37% of those people who answered told us that they suffer with anxiety. We also asked if people were interested in getting help online, and 41% of the people who answered the survey said that they would be willing to pay $99 or more a month for a resource that was online that would help them with their anxiety. And thankfully, with that hard work, we were able to place 3rd in that competition.
So for the third prize, we have Tranquility Online.
And it was really the work that I did at Startup Weekend and Collide that really educated me into how to use the business model canvas. And I attribute that to the reason why I won the Volta pitch competition and got into Propel ICT without even getting a team yet. In fact, during selection camp for Propel ICT, a few mentors asked me if I would be willing to build an MVP by using solely Google Docs. And from understanding how the canvas works, I understood the value of that and totally said yes. Now, after getting into Propel ICT, things were going pretty good, but I still had a pretty big problem. I didn't have a team yet, but today I have a very strong team of 4 others who are helping me with this project. As I already mentioned, I now have Rebecca Tucker as my co-founder, and Dr. Pencer is our scientific advisor. We also have another Dow student, Greg Miller, who is our software developer, and Michael Hunter from therounds.com, who is our technical advisor. So, in terms of that Google Docs MVP, eventually we decided against it, that users are going to need something a little bit more secure, and that there are tools that we had to build that wouldn't be able to be done within Google Docs. But Greg did an amazing job of building a bare bones MVP that is good enough to test with our users. And that was the next step. We just needed users. So what I did was I ran around Halifax putting up posters, and lo and behold, 130 people signed up to use our minimal viable product. So with that, we really feel like we validated that this is a real pain that people have and that people want help with this, and they're willing to sign up for something that is online. But we still have a lot of questions. For example, within this pilot study, we divided the users into 3 groups: self-help, one-on-one, as well as a group session. The results are about to be in with our study, but we already know that self-help and group didn't really work that well. And we're probably going to have to go back to the drawing board on the group sessions to see if we should continue with that. But we do know that one-on-one does work. But there's so much more we can learn from our users. And that's what we're going to be doing in the next couple of months. Looking at the jobs to be done and interviewing our users to find out how we can improve our MVP to get to a point where we can come up with a commercialized product. Another thing that has become loud and clear from talking to our users is that they want convenience, which means they want access to our tools in their pocket. So not only do they need a desktop version, but they also need a mobile-friendly version. And the last thing that we've learned during this trial is probably going to be the hardest thing for us to figure out, which is how do we make sure that users stay engaged with our product. And again, that's going to take a lot more interviews and a lot more digging around to figuring out what it is that is stopping users from following through all the way with our product. Which is why we want to be part of this program so that we can help hundreds of thousands of people with their mental health every year. Thank you.